All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something we all face, making sense of numbers. I mean, we are constantly bombarded with information, with data, but how do we actually turn all of that noise into a real discovery, into genuine understanding?
I mean, have you ever felt that feeling of just drowning in spreadsheets and reports and statistics? You have all the facts right there in front of you, but the big picture, the actual story, it's completely lost. Because here's the thing, and it's a real paradox we're going to explore. Just collecting more and more data doesn't automatically mean you get more clarity. Actually, sometimes it just makes things way more confusing.
Okay, so let's make this real. We're going to dive into a pretty powerful case study. We're heading to South Texas University back in 2022. The campus was really struggling to get a handle on student mental health, especially in that post-pandemic world. So, to figure it out, they decided to collect, well, everything. And I'm not kidding, everything. Just look at this list. They had detailed questionnaires, an app tracking daily moods, university grades, club attendance records, even anonymous data from the health center. They were literally building a mountain of information.
But here's the problem. When the lead researcher, a Dr. Maya Chavez, had to present her findings, she kind of hit a wall. The university provost asked this really simple but incredibly tough question. They had all the numbers, but they couldn't answer the most important thing. What does it all mean?
And that is the classic problem, right? How do you get from just noise to actual knowledge? It's not magic, it's a process. It's a process of taking something that's raw and totally chaotic and giving it some structure, some meaning.
So the whole journey starts right here with raw data. A good way to think about it is like the basic ingredients you have before you start cooking. It's every single answer on a survey, every individual grade, every single daily mood rating. On their own, these little points don't really tell you much. And this really gets to the heart of the challenge. We start with this raw data, which is just overwhelming and full of random noise. But the whole goal is to turn it into knowledge, something that's simplified, connected, and most importantly, something that can actually guide action. That whole journey is about making that leap from total chaos to real clarity.
So how did the university team even begin that journey? Well, they followed this really crucial four-step process. First, they just started by organizing all that chaos into tables. From there, they could summarize it, calculate averages and get a basic picture. The real meaning, though, that started to pop out when they added context, like comparing the data to previous years. And that's when they could finally start hunting for the real prize, the hidden patterns.
But even with all these steps, they were still struggling. The real aha moment, the big breakthrough, it came when a visiting expert suggested they stop looking at every single little detail and instead start searching for the core patterns. And that brings us to the key concept for today, dimensionality. I know, it sounds complicated, but think of it like this. If you want to describe a box, you just need three things, right? Length, width, and height. Those are its dimensions. Well, in psychology, dimensionality just refers to the main, independent pieces of a really complex idea, like well-being.
This was the exact problem the South Texas team was facing. They didn't have three dimensions, they had hundreds of variables, hundreds of dimensions. And when you have that many, your analysis just gets messy, you start seeing patterns that aren't even really there, and honestly, it just becomes impossible for the human brain to wrap its head around.
So the solution was to simplify. Using some pretty clever statistical techniques, the team discovered something incredible. Hundreds of their data points all started to cluster together into just 4 core themes or dimensions. And suddenly, the chaos made sense. It all pretty much boiled down to emotional distress, social connection, academic functioning, and the student's attitude towards getting help. Okay, so here's the crucial point. This wasn't just some neat academic trick. Simplifying the data from hundreds of different variables down to just 4 key dimensions is what made it useful. It's what allowed the university to finally take action. They went from being totally lost in a sea of numbers to having a clear map. They could now see how these 4 areas interacted with each other. For example, they could now spot that students with high emotional distress and really low social connection were the ones most at risk academically. And then, they could build a support program that targeted exactly those issues.
So let's zoom out for a second, because this South Texas University story isn't just about one campus. It's a perfect illustration of a really fundamental principle in science and psychology, this search for simplicity inside of complexity.
You know, our understanding of depression has followed this exact same path. We started out thinking of it as just a single scale, one dimension. But over time, research showed us it's multidimensional. It's got emotional, physical, and social parts. And now, modern assessments reflect that, giving us a much richer and way more useful picture.
And this really brings us to the core tension of all measurement. It's this constant balancing act. On one hand, you want to capture the full complexity of human experience, but on the other, you have to simplify it enough to see clear patterns that you can actually do something about.
Which is just perfectly captured in this famous quote from the statistician George Box. All models are wrong, but some are useful. That four-dimension model of student well-being, it's not a perfect picture of reality. No model is, but it was incredibly useful. And in the end, that's the goal. So this whole process of turning noise into knowledge and finding these core dimensions, it isn't just for scientists. It kind of makes you wonder, right? If you could organize and simplify all the overwhelming data of your own daily life, what are the key patterns, the core dimensions that are just sitting there waiting to be discovered?